Kim, and I'm back for another week of 10-minute tips for your relationships. 10 minutes. Okay, so I want to talk to you about something that sometimes is a little difficult to discuss, especially for us parents who have adult children, right? So, when your children start foraging out and they get older, they start developing their own relationships, and maybe sometimes these relationships turn into something very serious, And so when that happens, sometimes we as parents, we can get a little jealous or sometimes feel a certain type of way because now all of our children's attention is not turned toward us, it's turned toward another person. And this can be a little difficult when a daughter is very close to her dad and now she has another man in her life who's taking up her time. And the same thing can be with a woman who has a son that she's very close to, and then all of a sudden now the son is very into his girlfriend. But you know what? With these types of relationships, it's very important to know where we stand and to know and understand that our children are getting older, and guess what? They are going to have other relationships outside of their familiar relationships, outside of their families, their mom, their dad, their siblings, their cousins. They're going to have their own personal relationships. And so that's something that we as parents, we have to get used to. When it comes to our children forging out and developing these relationships, we have to step back and understand that there's some readjustments that have to take place. Yes, we have to readjust how we see that child, how we deal with that child, and whoever that child, son or daughter, may bring around, how we deal with that person. Yeah, it's real important that we do that. So traditionally, let's think about it. Traditionally, when a father takes his daughter or he's walking his daughter in her wedding and he's giving away the bride, once he steps to the front, he escorts her down the aisle and he steps to the front and the minister may say, "Who gives this woman to be married to this man?" And the father and the mom too will say, "I do," or "we do." And once they say that or they make that proclamation, then what do? They step back. Yeah, they step back. And so it's the same thing. That is a great model for us as parents of adult children to follow. Sometimes we have to step back. We have to take a step back and understand that there's a readjustment that's taking place, right? Not only does the dad step back, but you know what? Mom steps back too. It's time for her to step back as well, especially with these sons. I only have one son. We're very close, but I definitely respect his relationships. Amen? His relationship. Not only do parents sometimes have a problem with this, but sometimes siblings can have a problem too. My kids are very close, all four of them. 3 daughters, 1 son. They are very close. And I don't apologize for that because we raised them to be that way. We did that on purpose. We always told them, no matter what, no matter who, you always support your sibling. You never, ever, ever turn your back on your sibling. Okay? And so that's something that's been ingrained in them, and they've learned that, and they live that way. But I will give it to my daughters. They are very respectful of his relationship. Okay, so once our kids start forging out and developing their own relationships, the one thing we don't want them to feel like they have to do is have divided loyalties, right? When they're in a relationship with someone, that's just it. They're in a relationship, and that relationship has nothing to do with you as a parent. It's their relationship. Whether you agree or disagree with the person that they're in relationship with, you still need to show up with the right and proper type of boundaries for your children. Okay, so I want to start mentioning some things or talking about some things that could be very helpful to you as the parent of an adult child who's in a relationship, who's married, engaged, just some responsibilities that we as the parents of adult children have. Okay, so the very first thing, of course, is your boundaries, right? You gotta have appropriate boundaries. Gotta have appropriate boundaries. Somebody say appropriate boundaries, right? There are certain lines that you should not cross. Yeah. You start crossing certain lines when your children start having relationships, or if they're married, or you have a new daughter-in-law, you have a new son-in-law, and you start crossing those lines or those boundaries, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. And when I say trouble, I just mean you're going to find that the relationship will become strained. Yes. When think back on when you first got into your relationship and how that was for you. Your main loyalty, or your priority was to that person, right? To that person that you were in relationship with. And it's the same thing for our kids. Even though they're our children, they're adults. And so when they get into relationships, they get married, their priority is to that wife or to that husband. It's no longer to us. It's no longer to mom and dad. It's no longer to sisters and brothers and cousins and all those folks, not even their friends. It's to that spouse, that mate, that significant other. Okay? And that could be a hard pill to swallow for some people. So I just want to give you a few tips on some things that you should do or should not do so that you can remain in a good, healthy relationship with your adult child who is in a relationship, married, engaged, or dating. The first thing is, and this is sometimes a difficult one for some of us because we've been doing this for our kids all their lives, right? But keep your unsolicited advice to yourself. How about that? Yes, if I didn't ask you for your opinion, that means I probably don't want it. So you may be sitting back looking at something or seeing things unfold, or you may be thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want these kids to go down that pathway. I don't want this to happen to them. Let me just tell them what they should do. No, don't do that. Keep your advice to yourself unless the son or the daughter, or the daughter-in-law or the son-in-law ask you for your advice. Let them ask you for your advice. Don't just offer it, okay? Even if you see something happening, you know what? Hey, just keep it to yourself. If you're a praying person, go and pray. Ask God to help. Or even ask God, you know what, Lord? Let the children come to me. Let these young people come to me so that I can give them some good sound advice. And not biased advice, some good sound advice, right? So we don't want to do that. We don't want to give advice where advice was not requested. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to keep our opinions to ourselves. No gossiping about what's going on. You can't get on the phone and say, hey girl, you know what's going on with my son and his girlfriend, or my son and his wife, those kids and all that kind of stuff. No ganging up. So mom and sisters, you can't be cornering the new wife, the new daughter-in-law, dad and brothers. You can't be cornering the new son-in-law or the new boyfriend. Don't gang up on them. You want to support. You always want your adult children to feel like they can come to you with anything. But when we have our own opinions and we are expressing those opinions, we're ganging up on their significant other, they're not going to take too lightly to that. Okay? And then watch your competitive behavior, right? We're not in competition with their significant other. Nah, we're not. We have a place in their life, just like that new person has a place in their life. And every person should respect the other person's place. Yeah, I think that's something that would keep us from getting into a lot of problems. Now, the last thing I want to say is this. I want us to be careful that if we find that there is a problem with you and say the other person, the daughter-in-law, the son-in-law, the significant other, whomever, then you know what? You want to work that out with your child, your biological child. Don't step to that other person. You're going to cause a lot of problems. And not only will you cause a problem between you and that other person, but then you may cause a problem between your daughter, your son, and their significant other, their husband or wife. So we don't want to be responsible for that kind of thing, right? So these are my 10-minute tips. And you know what? Parents of adult kids, let's watch our boundaries. Let's watch our words. Let's watch our intentions when it comes to dealing with our children and their significant others. It's really important. We needed that same respect when we were coming up in our fresh new relationship. So let's do the same thing for our kids. These are my 10-minute tips. Thank you. Have a great day.